Have you ever felt like you're living to please others instead of being true to yourself? What if, instead of adding more to your life, the real freedom came from quietly letting things go? And what if your biggest transformation didn't begin with noise, but with silence? In a world that constantly demands more success, more connections, more noise, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But what if the path to a better life wasn't about piling more on your plate, but about gently releasing what no longer serves you? Imagine a life with more breathing room, more clarity, more purpose. In this episode, we'll uncover 10 things you should quietly eliminate from your life to live with greater intention and inner calm, guided by the timeless wisdom of Stoicism. These aren't loud, dramatic changes. You won't need to make big announcements or seek anyone's approval. Instead, this is about a quiet, powerful personal shift. You'll learn how to let go of your fear of others' opinions, free yourself from toxic relationships, stop trying to control everything, and silence the digital noise that surrounds you. These aren't just surface-level tweaks. They're deep, mindset-altering shifts that create space for freedom, self-respect, and a more fulfilling life. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear roadmap to let go of what's holding you back and focus on what truly matters. Because sometimes the most profound transformations happen in silence. Let's begin with the first one: overcoming the fear of others' opinions. How many times have you held yourself back, hesitated to speak up, second-guessed your choices, or abandoned a dream, just because you were worried about what someone else might think? It's a quiet fear, one that sneaks in unnoticed. You start shaping your actions around invisible judgment, constantly adjusting who you are to earn approval. Over time, this fear doesn't just affect your behavior, it reshapes your identity. You start living a smaller, quieter version of your life, one that's dictated not by what fulfills you, but by what pleases them. But here's the truth: people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. Most are wrapped up in their own lives, their own worries, and their own insecurities. The fear of judgment thrives on the illusion that the world is watching you closely. In reality, most people give your actions a passing thought, if that, and if someone does judge you, so what? Ask yourself, what real impact does their opinion have on my life? Most of the time, the answer is none. Their opinions don't pay your bills, build your dreams, or live your life. Once you truly grasp this, you begin to see that the weight you've been carrying is one you don't actually have to bear. You've been holding onto a burden you can set down at any moment. Stoicism offers a powerful lens on this. Epictetus, a great Stoic philosopher, taught that we should focus only on what's within our control, and the opinions of others? That's firmly outside your control. Earlier, we explored how the fear of others' opinions can silently shape your life, and how freeing it can be to let go of that invisible weight. Now, let's take that understanding a step further and look at how you can actually start releasing this fear in your everyday life. You can't control what others think about you. You can't predict their perceptions or change their reactions. But here's what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, and your attitude toward those opinions. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said it best: if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. At first glance, that may sound harsh, but it's not about embracing ignorance. It's about understanding that real personal growth often comes with discomfort. And part of that discomfort is this: being misunderstood, misjudged, or even ridiculed. So, how do you actually begin to let go of this fear in a practical, everyday way? It starts with awareness. Begin to notice the moment it shows up. The next time you hesitate to speak up in a meeting, stop yourself from posting something personal online, or feel anxious about trying something new. Pause. Ask yourself, am I acting in line with my values, or am I acting out of fear? If fear is in the driver's seat, challenge it. Ask, what's the worst that could realistically happen? Often, your brain will conjure up the worst-case scenario: rejection, embarrassment, being laughed at. But when you really examine it, most of these outcomes are far less catastrophic than they feel. They're temporary, minor, and more often than not, they never actually happen. Here's a small but powerful exercise. Start with one small act that takes you slightly outside your comfort zone, something you'd usually avoid just to dodge judgment. Maybe it's sharing an unpopular opinion in a conversation. Maybe it's wearing something bold. Maybe it's uploading that video you've been sitting on for months. Every time you push through the discomfort and act anyway, you teach your brain something important, that your alignment with your inner self matters more than chasing external approval. Over time, what used to feel terrifying will begin to feel liberating. You won't need the applause. You'll already have your own permission. It also makes a world of difference to surround yourself with people who support your growth, not limit it. Environments filled with judgment, criticism, and comparison can feed your fear. But being around people who genuinely want to see you thrive, that gives you space to breathe, to try, and to be your full, authentic self. That said, even in the most supportive circles, judgment can still exist. And that's okay. The goal isn't to avoid judgment entirely. It's to build such strong inner clarity that other people's opinions lose their power over you. Why is this fear so hard to shake? Because deep down, it's rooted in something very human. The need to belong, to be accepted. But true belonging doesn't require you to shrink yourself to fit. It happens when you show up, fully, as you are, not as a version crafted to please others. So here's a question worth asking. At the end of your life, do you want to look back and realize you lived for other people's expectations? Or do you want to know you lived true to yourself? That question has a way of cutting through all the noise. It reminds you of what actually matters, because the judgments you fear today, they'll fade, be forgotten, or replaced. But the choices you make for you, those stay. They become your life. So in the end, overcoming this fear isn't about shutting the world out. It's about tuning your life to your own frequency. It's about choosing peace over popularity and authenticity over applause. In the last section, we talked about the power of freeing yourself from the fear of others' opinions and how putting your inner voice first can transform your life. But sometimes, the pressure doesn't just come from strangers or the outside world. Sometimes, it comes from the very people closest to us. That brings us to number 2, cutting out toxic relationships. You've probably heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But what happens when some of those 5 people constantly drain your energy, chip away at your confidence, or make you question your worth, quietly, subtly, day after day? The truth is, toxic relationships aren't always loud or obvious. They don't always show up as shouting matches or big betrayals. Sometimes they look like constant tension beneath the surface, small, cutting remarks disguised as jokes, conversations that leave you feeling less than, relationships where one person gives and the other only takes. It's a quiet erosion, one that slowly wears down your well-being. You may find yourself feeling anxious, unappreciated, or stuck in a cycle of emotional exhaustion. And over time, that invisible pressure can lead to lowered self-esteem, reduced motivation, and even physical stress. Yet despite this damage, many of us hold on. Why? Because we're afraid of confrontation, because we feel guilty, or simply because we've grown used to the discomfort and normalized it as part of our routine. But here's the good news. Letting go doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to confront someone with a big speech or cut ties in a blaze of anger. In fact, one of the most effective ways to move on from toxic relationships is quietly, calmly, and with intention. Start by gradually distancing yourself. Spend less time with people who bring tension into your life, and more time with those who uplift and encourage you. No grand explanations needed. Your peace doesn't need to be justified. But how do you know if a relationship is toxic? Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you feel drained, anxious, or small? Are you constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid setting them off? If yes, that's a sign something's off. Healthy relationships aren't supposed to feel like a balancing act. They should leave you feeling energized, respected, and valued, like you can breathe fully as yourself. Stoicism reminds us to protect our inner peace by focusing on what's within our control. Epictetus once said, "Keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence brings out your best." This doesn't mean cutting someone off the moment things get hard. All relationships have rough patches, but when a dynamic becomes a pattern of chaos, negativity, or emotional harm, it's time to set boundaries. And boundaries are not walls. They're windows into self-respect. They don't shut people out. They simply protect your well-being. For example, if a friend constantly brings drama into your life, you might choose to see them less often, or gently guide conversations away from topics that always lead to conflict. If a family member frequently criticizes you, you can limit how much of your emotional space you give to those interactions. And yes, some relationships may naturally fade as you grow. That's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk the entire journey with you. As we continue, let's explore another form of emotional weight that many of us carry, often without realizing it: the need to control everything. Let's uncover how releasing control can actually bring you more peace than holding on to it ever could. Earlier, we talked about how setting boundaries and, when necessary, letting go can help you create space for healthier, more uplifting relationships. But what if you've tried talking things through and nothing changes? Not all difficult relationships are doomed, but not all of them are meant to stay either. Some strained connections can be transformed through honest, vulnerable conversations. Opening up about how you feel, what's hurting you, what's missing, can sometimes lead to deeper understanding and meaningful change. But if you've tried sincerely and things still don't improve, it's okay to let go. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. In fact, it often means you care deeply, enough to prioritize your mental and emotional health. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from what's causing you pain. Here's something simple, yet incredibly eye-opening that you can do. Make a list of the people in your life, split into 2 columns. One column, the people who consistently uplift you, energize you, and support your growth. The other, those who leave you feeling drained, tense, or uncertain. Now, for each draining relationship, ask yourself 2 honest questions. Can this relationship be improved through communication? Or is it time to gently create some distance? Then, take one small action. Maybe it's spending less time around that person. Maybe it's setting a clear boundary about what topics are off limits or how often you'll engage. Even subtle changes can protect your peace more than you realize. And another key question: am I holding on to this relationship out of genuine connection or just out of habit? If the answer leans toward habit or guilt or obligation, then it may be time to begin letting go. Quietly, intentionally, with love, but without waiting for permission. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing your well-being. You owe it to yourself to create an environment that nourishes you, not one that depletes you. Let's be clear. Cutting toxic ties isn't about being cold or harsh. It's about being radically kind to yourself. Because when you remove what weighs you down, you make space for what lifts you up. You open the door to healthier relationships and a life that actually feels peaceful. Not just on the outside, but deep inside. True self-respect starts with the people you choose to keep around. Surround yourself with those who see your worth and who encourage the best version of you to shine. In the last section, we explored how seemingly small habits, like late-night scrolling or stress eating, can quietly sabotage our peace and productivity. And we began the process of breaking free from those patterns by replacing them with more nourishing routines. Now, let's take that transformation even deeper. Here's the truth. Trying to change your entire routine overnight is a recipe for burnout. Real, sustainable change doesn't come from doing everything at once. It comes from doing one small thing at a time. If you're trying to cut back on late-night snacking, don't aim to eliminate everything in one go. Instead, start small. Replace just one unhealthy snack with something more nutritious. Maybe swap the chips for fruit or the ice cream for yogurt. It might feel like a tiny shift, but these small wins build momentum, and momentum builds confidence. As those little changes add up, you'll notice something powerful happening, not just in your habits, but in how you see yourself. You're not just someone trying to change, you're someone who can change. But here's something just as important as the effort: self-compassion. Because let's face it, breaking free from destructive habits isn't a straight line. There will be moments when you slip. You'll fall back into old patterns. And when that happens, don't attack yourself. Don't spiral into guilt or shame. Instead, treat those moments as learning opportunities. Pause. Ask yourself, what triggered this behavior? What was I feeling in that moment? And what can I do differently next time? That reflection turns failure into fuel. It's not about being perfect. It's about making steady, conscious progress toward a life that feels healthier, more grounded, and more intentional. Here's a practical way to begin. Pick one habit you want to change. Just one. For the next 7 days, focus only on replacing that habit with something more positive. Track your progress each day. Then, at the end of the week, reflect. How did you feel throughout the process? Did you feel more in control? Did it give you more peace, focus, or energy? Use your answers to guide your next steps. This kind of honest reflection strengthens your awareness and keeps you connected to why you're making these changes in the first place. And here's a powerful question to carry with you. Am I controlling my habits, or are my habits controlling me? If your habits are steering the wheel, remind yourself, you have the power to take it back. Every small step you take to eliminate a destructive habit is a step toward greater self-respect, toward a version of yourself that lives with purpose, not just impulse. Because in the end, your habits shape your life, and by choosing better ones, you shape a better future. It's not about grand sweeping gestures. It's about quiet, consistent actions, day by day, that lead to real, lasting change. In the previous part, we explored how learning to release control, especially over things outside of your influence, can dramatically reduce stress and bring more peace into your life. Now, let's take that idea one step further. Learning to detach from outcomes. Letting go of control isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. It's about freeing yourself from unnecessary tension and making room, mentally and emotionally, for peace of mind. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is by practicing detachment from results. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean you stop caring. It simply means that you focus on doing your best in any given moment, then release your grip on what happens next. Let's say you're working on an important project. Instead of obsessing over whether it'll be applauded or ignored, focus on what you can control, the quality of your work, your intention, your effort. Because when you detach from the outcome, something shifts. You stop living in fear of judgment. You stay grounded in the present. And that reduces anxiety in a big way. Here's a practical way to apply this. The next time you feel stressed because something isn't going as planned, pause and ask yourself, is this something I can control? If the answer is yes, great, take action. If the answer is no, practice the art of letting go. Gently remind yourself, I can't control this, but I can control how I respond. It might seem small, but over time, this mental habit rewires your reaction to uncertainty. Instead of spiraling, you remain steady. Instead of clinging, you allow. Another powerful tool, mindfulness. When you train your mind to stay in the present moment, you naturally reduce the urge to control what's beyond your reach. Try simple practices, like closing your eyes and focusing on your breath for a few minutes, or silently observing your surroundings without judgment. These moments of stillness anchor you. They remind you, this moment is enough. And if you find yourself exhausted, mentally and emotionally, ask, am I wearing myself out trying to control what I was never meant to? If the answer is yes, then start small. Let go of just one thing today. Maybe it's the outcome of a conversation, someone's opinion of you, a delay that's out of your hands, just one thing. And notice how it feels to release that burden, even if only for a moment. Because letting go of control isn't giving up. It's choosing peace over panic. It's choosing acceptance over resistance. Life will always contain uncertainty. But when you focus on what is within your reach, your mindset, your actions, your energy, you reclaim your power, you conserve your strength. And in that space of surrender, you'll find a calm mind, a clearer heart, and a quiet strength to face whatever life brings. Previously, we explored how letting go of control frees you from the stress of trying to manage the unmanageable. Now, let's look at another subtle form of mental pressure, one that often disguises itself as ambition or standards, but quietly drains your peace. Unrealistic expectations. We've all been there. You imagine how something should go, how someone should act, and then reality falls short. That gap, it breeds disappointment, frustration, and unnecessary emotional weight. Maybe you expected a friend to respond with empathy and felt hurt when they didn't. Maybe you set a big, ambitious goal and then felt like a failure when things didn't move fast enough. The problem isn't having hopes, dreams, or standards. It's when we grip too tightly to one specific outcome, forgetting that life is fluid, unpredictable, and rarely follows the script we've written in our minds. Stoic philosophy offers a powerful antidote to this trap. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." In other words, you can't always control what happens, but you can control your response. When you loosen your grip on how things should be, you make space to experience life as it is, not with frustration, but with openness, not with resistance, but with curiosity. One major source of unrealistic expectations: perfectionism. It tells us we have to get everything right on the first try without flaws or failure. But here's the thing. Perfection is an illusion, a moving target, and chasing it always leaves you feeling behind, no matter how far you've come. Letting go of perfection doesn't mean settling for less. It means choosing progress over perfection. It means giving yourself permission to grow through mistakes, to stumble, and still move forward with self-respect. Another common trap comes from how we view others. We often expect people to agree with us, understand us completely, or act according to our personal standards. But people are human, flawed, complex, and carrying their own burdens. Instead of demanding perfection from others, try practicing empathy and acceptance. That doesn't mean tolerating harmful behavior or lowering your boundaries. It means recognizing that not everyone will meet your expectations, and that's okay. They're on their own path, just like you. So, how do you begin releasing these unrealistic expectations? Step 1. Identify where your expectations might be too rigid. Are you expecting instant results in a process that naturally takes time? Are you holding someone to a standard they didn't agree to or can't meet? Once you spot those expectations, ask yourself, are these helping me or just making me more stressed? Step 2. Shift your mindset from rigidity to flexibility. Instead of bracing for perfection, prepare for possibilities. This doesn't mean giving up your goals. It means being open to the idea that things might unfold differently than you imagined, and that can still be okay. Here's a practical reflection exercise. Think about an area in your life where you've been feeling stuck or frustrated. Then ask, is this frustration coming from an unrealistic expectation? If the answer is yes, take a deep breath and try to reframe it. Instead of everything has to go perfectly, try, I'll focus on what I can control, my effort, my attitude, and my response. And most importantly, ask yourself, am I holding on to expectations that are making me unhappy? Because if you are, it's worth remembering. Letting go of unrealistic expectations isn't the same as giving up. It's freeing yourself from invisible stress. It's creating space for joy, for patience, and for a more peaceful relationship with yourself and others. You can still aim high. You can still dream big. Just remember to hold your dreams with flexibility, not a clenched fist. In the last section, we explored how letting go of unrealistic expectations can help us embrace reality with more peace, gratitude, and grace. When we release the pressure of perfection, we open ourselves to progress. And that shift makes life feel lighter, more meaningful, and far less frustrating. Now let's talk about something else that often gets in the way of peace. Not outside of us, but within. The need to always be right. Be honest. Have you ever caught yourself in an argument? Not because the topic truly mattered, but because you couldn't let go of proving your point. You're not alone. For many of us, the urge to be right is tied to something deeper, our ego. On the surface, it feels like a search for truth, but in many cases, it's actually a search for validation, a need to feel seen, heard, or respected. And when being right becomes part of our identity, every disagreement starts to feel like a threat. That tension, it shows up in our relationships, in our energy, and even in our ability to stay calm and present. The problem is this: when you always have to be right, every conversation becomes a contest. Every differing opinion feels like a challenge you need to defeat. And in that battle, we often lose what matters most: connection, harmony, and peace of mind. Even if you win the argument, what's left behind? Is it mutual respect? Or is it a silent wall between you and the other person? Many times, we realize too late that winning came at the cost of closeness. Letting go of the need to always be right doesn't mean giving up your values or staying silent when something truly matters. It means knowing when it's worth speaking up and when it's wiser to step back. It's choosing peace over pride. It's recognizing that not every disagreement needs a winner. Sometimes, the most respectful thing you can say is, I see it differently, but I understand where you're coming from. That kind of response doesn't weaken your voice. It strengthens your character. The Stoics had a timeless perspective on this. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." That's a powerful reminder. Real wisdom doesn't come from always being right. It comes from being open to listening, open to learning, open to admitting that you might not know everything. When you release the grip of always having to be correct, something beautiful happens. You grow. You become more thoughtful, more understanding, and more open to perspectives you may have once rejected. Think about it. The people we respect the most aren't the ones who dominate every conversation or insist on having the last word. They're the ones who listen deeply, speak with care, and are willing to say, I could be wrong, tell me more. That's the kind of presence that builds real trust. Because while being right may give you a momentary boost, being kind leaves a lasting impact. In the last section, we talked about how letting go of the need to always be right can lead to healthier relationships and a calmer mind. Now let's dig into how to practice that shift. How to move from ego-driven reaction to conscious communication. A great place to start: active listening. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement, instead of jumping in to defend your point, try something different. Pause, take a breath, and really listen to what the other person is saying. Ask yourself, am I listening to understand, or am I just waiting for my turn to speak? That one question changes everything. When you shift your focus from winning the conversation to understanding the other person, you create space for dialogue, not debate. The conversation becomes less about proving you're right and more about building connection, empathy, and mutual respect. Another powerful mindset shift is to ask, is this worth my peace? Not every disagreement deserves your energy. Not every point needs to be made. If it's a minor issue or something that won't even matter tomorrow, maybe, just maybe, it's better to let it go. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Choosing your peace over your pride shows strength. It shows emotional maturity. It shows that your well-being matters more than a fleeting sense of superiority. Here's a simple, practical exercise. The next time you're mid-disagreement, pause and ask yourself, do I need to be right, or do I want to understand? If you catch yourself arguing just to prove a point, try stepping back just a little and redirect your attention toward truly hearing the other person. Notice what happens. Notice how the energy of the conversation shifts. And more importantly, notice how you feel afterward. Ask, am I sacrificing my peace just to be right? If the answer is yes, remind yourself, letting go of the need to be right isn't about losing. It's about choosing a better outcome, harmony, respect, and emotional freedom. When you drop the need to constantly defend your ego, you step into a lighter, freer version of yourself. You live with less stress. You relate to others with more ease. You gain something more lasting than any debate victory, inner peace. In the last section, we explored how constant digital noise chips away at your focus and inner peace. Now let's talk about how to take your attention back, not by disconnecting from the world, but by being more intentional with how you engage in it. One of the simplest yet most effective steps you can take: declutter your digital space. Start small. Unfollow social media accounts that no longer inspire or serve you. Unsubscribe from email lists that fill your inbox with noise instead of value. And turn off non-essential notifications, the ones that buzz all day but add nothing to your well-being. Every tiny step you take toward reducing digital clutter frees up more mental space. Space for calm, for clarity, and for things that actually matter. Another powerful habit is to create tech-free moments in your day. Try this. In the morning, resist the urge to check your phone for the first 30 minutes. Instead, use that time to breathe, journal, meditate, stretch, or simply enjoy the quiet. Give yourself permission to arrive in your day before the outside world pulls you in. Then, in the evening, create a shutdown ritual. Choose a time, maybe an hour before bed, when you put all screens away. Let your brain unwind without the glow of notifications or endless scrolling. You'll be amazed at how these small changes can dramatically improve your mood, focus, and sleep quality. The wisdom of Stoicism fits perfectly here. It teaches us to focus on what we can control. In a world overflowing with digital distractions, you may not be able to eliminate them entirely, but you can control your relationship with them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In today's world, applying that wisdom means guarding your attention like the precious resource it is. Your focus is your power, so don't give it away to every ping and pop-up. Here's a practical tip. Set specific times during the day to check your phone or email. Instead of reacting to every alert the moment it arrives, take back control by creating designated check-in moments. Use tools like Do Not Disturb mode or app time limits to support your boundaries. You'll likely be surprised at how much more peaceful and productive you feel when you're not constantly reacting to every digital interruption. Ask yourself honestly, am I using technology with intention, or is it using me? If you find yourself mindlessly consuming content that doesn't nourish or serve you, it might be time to reset your digital habits. Because silencing the noise isn't about escaping the world. It's about reconnecting with yourself. And when the distractions fade, what returns is powerful, deeper focus, richer conversations, and more presence. In your life, in a world that never turns off, choosing to pause, to be still and intentional, isn't just wise, it's revolutionary. Previously, we talked about how constant digital distractions can clutter the mind, but sometimes the real noise isn't around us. It's within us, the voice in your head, the one that doubts, criticizes, and questions your worth. Let's talk about transforming negative thoughts into positive ones. Because left unchecked, those quiet, constant thoughts can take a heavy toll. They start small, self-doubt, worry, criticism. But before long, they can leave you feeling anxious, unmotivated, or completely overwhelmed. Stoicism reminds us of a powerful truth. While we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we interpret and respond to it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, your internal world shapes your external experience. So if your mind is constantly filled with negativity, that's the lens through which you'll see everything. But here's the good news. You can shift that lens. Transforming negative thoughts doesn't mean ignoring problems or forcing fake positivity. It means recognizing harmful mental patterns and actively choosing better ones. It's not denial, it's empowerment. The first step is awareness. Many of us don't even realize how often we engage in negative self-talk because it's become so automatic. Thoughts like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never get this right," can run in the background of your mind, unchallenged, for years. So start paying attention to your inner dialogue. And when you catch a negative thought, don't judge yourself. Just pause, acknowledge it, then gently ask, "Is this thought helping me, or is it holding me back?" That question creates a small but powerful moment of space. And in that space, you take back your control. Next comes reframing. Reframing is the practice of looking at the same situation, but from a more empowering perspective. For instance, if you think, "I always mess things up," try shifting it to, "I made a mistake, but I can learn from this and do better next time." You're not denying the truth. You're just telling a more constructive version of it, one that supports your growth instead of fueling self-judgment. Another simple but powerful mindset tool is gratitude. Negative thoughts tend to focus on what's lacking, what's broken, or what's going wrong. Gratitude gently shifts your attention to what's present, what's working, and what's already good. When you feel overwhelmed, try this. Stop, breathe, and name 3 things you're grateful for right now. It might be the roof over your head, a kind friend, or simply the fact that you're growing and learning. Gratitude won't erase life's challenges, but it brings balance. It helps you see the full picture, not just the shadows. Also, pay attention to your environment, the people you spend time with, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in. They all shape your thoughts. If you're surrounded by negativity, fear, or constant criticism, it becomes harder to stay mentally strong. Seek out voices that uplift you. Mentors, friends, podcasts, books. Fill your mind with ideas and people that inspire, not drain you. Over time, these positive influences help reinforce new, healthier thought patterns. Here's a simple yet powerful exercise. The next time you find yourself stuck in a loop of negative thinking, pause and ask, "Is this thought based on facts, or is it coming from fear or assumption?" If it's fear, challenge it. Then replace it with a thought that's more grounded, encouraging, and realistic. For example, if you catch yourself thinking, "I'll never succeed," reframe it as, "Success takes time, and every step I take moves me closer." In the last section, we explored the power of shifting negative thoughts and how that inner rewiring can shape a more resilient, optimistic version of you. But even as you work on your mindset, there's another layer to clear. The clutter that surrounds and crowds your everyday life. Let's talk about number 9, clearing physical and mental clutter. Have you ever noticed how a messy room can make your thoughts feel messier too? Like your brain is trying to focus, but it's wading through a fog of distraction. Clutter, whether it's the stack of unopened mail on the table or the endless to-do list running circles in your head, creates noise. And that noise pulls energy away from what matters most: your peace, your clarity, and your ability to be fully present. That's why making space, both externally and internally, is not just a luxury, it's essential for your well-being. Let's start with physical clutter. When your environment is filled with mess, even if it's subtle, your brain has to process all that visual input, whether you realize it or not. Every object in your field of view becomes one more thing your mind has to register, sort, or ignore. That low-level stress adds up. So the goal isn't to have a picture-perfect home or an Instagram-worthy desk. It's about creating a space that supports your peace, a space that lets your mind breathe. Try this. Choose one small area, just a drawer, a shelf, or the top of your desk. Declutter it intentionally. Remove what no longer serves you. As you do, notice the subtle relief that comes with it, not just physically, but mentally. Ask yourself, do the things in this space add value to my life? Or are they just taking up space? If something doesn't bring you joy, purpose, or usefulness, it may be time to let it go. Remember, it's not about achieving minimalist perfection. It's about intentional living. Surround yourself with items that uplift your energy, not overwhelm it. Now let's shift to mental clutter. Mental clutter is sneakier. It looks like racing thoughts, unspoken emotions, or tasks left unfinished. It's that feeling of spinning plates, trying to keep everything moving, but never feeling quite caught up. Often, this kind of clutter builds up when we're stretched, too thin, or when we avoid things that need resolution. The Stoics had a clear philosophy here. Simplify your life by focusing only on what truly matters. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." So how do we begin to declutter the mind? One powerful practice is journaling. Take just 5 minutes a day to write. No structure needed. Let your thoughts spill out. What's bothering you? What's lingering in your mind? What's unfinished or unresolved? This simple act gives your thoughts a place to land, outside your head, and often brings surprising clarity. What felt tangled becomes clearer. What felt heavy becomes lighter, and, gradually, you begin to reclaim your mental space. In the last section, we explored how clearing both physical and mental clutter can bring clarity, calm, and a renewed sense of control. Now, let's take those practices a little further, with some practical ways to apply them in your daily life. One simple yet powerful method is journaling. Writing down your thoughts, worries, and never-ending to-do lists helps free up precious mental space. It removes the burden of having to keep everything in your head. When you put things on paper, they stop circling in your mind like a broken record. Suddenly, you can breathe a little easier. But journaling isn't just for organizing, it's also a tool for reflection. Take a few quiet moments to ask yourself, what's been weighing me down lately? As you write, patterns will begin to emerge. And with those patterns, you'll often uncover simple, actionable steps you can take to ease that weight. Another helpful practice is mindful prioritization. Much of our mental clutter comes from trying to juggle too many things at once. We scatter our focus across 10 different tasks and end up completing none of them well. Instead, start your mornings by asking, what are the 3 most important things I need to focus on today? Just 3. When you simplify your focus, you reduce overwhelm and increase your sense of achievement. Even a small win feels more powerful when your mind isn't stretched in 100 directions. Now let's connect the mental with the physical. Here's something simple you can do. Today, pick one small area in your home to declutter. It could be your bedside table, your kitchen counter, or just one drawer in your desk. As you physically clear that space, observe how it affects your mental state. Often what we clear outside of us brings clarity inside us too. Then, sit down for 5 minutes and write out any lingering thoughts or worries. Let them flow freely. No structure needed. Just the act of acknowledging them gives your mind room to reset. Throughout this process, ask yourself, am I holding on to things, physically or mentally, that no longer serve me? If the answer is yes, start releasing. Not everything has to go at once. Just begin, quietly, intentionally, with what feels right. Clearing clutter doesn't mean living with nothing. It means making space for what truly matters. Because whether it's the physical items piling up in your home or the worries stacking up in your mind, clutter creates noise, and that noise drowns out your clarity, your peace, and your presence. But when you begin to let go, life becomes simpler, lighter, more intentional. And in that simplicity, you'll find a freedom that no amount of more could ever give you. In the last section, we began to uncover the quiet trap of comparison, how constantly measuring your life against others can rob you of joy, peace, and perspective. Now, let's explore how to release that pressure and return to what truly matters. Your own path. The Stoics had a timeless lesson on this. Instead of comparing yourself to others, they believed in comparing yourself only to your past self. Seneca wisely advised, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. In other words, the only comparison that truly matters is how far you've come on your own journey. Progress isn't about outrunning someone else. It's about becoming a better version of yourself, one day at a time. Escaping the comparison trap begins by turning your attention inward. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? Am I living in alignment with those values? When your focus is grounded in what matters to you, you stop chasing someone else's version of success. You begin to measure progress, not by titles, followers, or income, but by personal growth, peace of mind, and fulfillment. Another powerful way to let go of comparison: gratitude. When you constantly compare, your mind zooms in on what you lack. But when you practice gratitude, it shifts your focus to what you already have. Each day, pause and reflect on 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand. Sometimes it's a warm cup of coffee, a kind message, or simply the fact that you made it through a hard day. Gratitude is a quiet anchor in a world of noise. It's also important to limit exposure to comparison triggers. If scrolling through social media leaves you feeling like you're not enough, do something about it. Unfollow accounts that stir insecurity. Mute what drains you. Curate your feed so it uplifts you instead of weighing you down. You have control over what you consume, and protecting your peace is always worth it. Here's something practical. The next time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's, pause and ask, what's one thing I've done recently that I'm proud of? This simple reflection redirects your focus from what you don't have to what you've already achieved. It builds self-worth from the inside out. Ask yourself, am I living by my values, or am I trying to keep up with someone else's version of success? If the answer leans toward the latter, gently remind yourself, everyone's journey is different. What works for them might not be meant for you, and that's more than okay. Comparison is a distraction. It pulls you away from appreciating your own progress and places you in a race you were never meant to run. But when you release the need to measure your life against others, you finally free yourself to focus on what truly matters: your growth, your joy, and your unique rhythm. And now, as we close this episode, take a moment to step back and reflect. Life isn't always about adding more. Often, it's about removing what no longer serves you, whether it's fear, toxic relationships, destructive habits, or unrealistic expectations. These things quietly shape our lives. They drain our energy, limit our potential, and keep us stuck. But The moment you begin to quietly eliminate what no longer aligns, you create space for something greater: freedom, purpose, and deep inner peace. This journey isn't about dramatic changes or public declarations. It's about quiet, intentional choices. The ones that happen when no one's watching. The ones that build a life aligned with your values, your energy, and your truth. Letting go isn't easy. It takes courage to walk away from what no longer fits, discipline to break free from what's familiar, and self-awareness to know when it's time to change. But every small step you take, every quiet decision to release what weighs you down, brings you closer to clarity, strength, and peace. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Real power doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from choosing how you respond to it. When you stop trying to manage what's beyond your reach and instead focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, you reclaim your life. Because true transformation, it doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It shows up in the quiet moment when you decide, I'm ready to let this go. So ask yourself now, what's one thing, just one, that I can quietly eliminate from my life today? A thought, a habit, a comparison, a fear. Start small. You don't need a breakthrough. You just need one honest step in the right direction. And remember, this is your life. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You just need intention. So go forward, quietly, steadily, boldly. Let go of what no longer serves you, and make space for what truly matters: peace of mind, genuine connection, a life that feels like your own. Thank you for being here. If this episode spoke to you, take a moment to reflect, and, if you're ready, begin. Start with one small change today, because the greatest transformations don't begin with noise. They begin with quiet courage. Until next time, keep growing, keep letting go, and most importantly, stay true to yourself.